So that's your sizing done, dude.
So now you've taken all the sizes. What is the situation if when the suit comes it's not quite right, or there's something that maybe the diver's not happy with?
Yeah, so let's go for the sizing one first. So let's say the diver's tried the suit on, there's a specific size that's wrong. So the first thing we do is we always then remeasure the diver in that area and the areas around that area, because they can also change that measurement, let's say. So we remeasure the diver around the area. We then measure the suit, and then we can work back from our tolerances, and we should hit the same number eventually. If that number's out, then that means that there's been a cutting problem with the suit, so the suit needs to be recut. If we remeasure and then there's a difference, by a quite significant difference, then there's either a problem with measuring or the customer's changed in size in some way. If we can visually see that the customer's changed in size, it's kind of then a 50-50 thing if we need to come to some sort of agreement as us and the customer, and we can work the situation out. If it comes down to a sizing problem, then it's down to us as the dealer. So we need to then take the measurements again and make sure they're 100% right. The suit would then go back to Poland and be not remade, but they take the panels out that they can change and then refit the panels into the suit.
And how does that differ if the customers measured themselves versus if you as a dealer has done
So as us as a dealer, it's our job to kind of work that out for the customer. The customer's always going to have to buy a suit through a dealer no matter what, because you can't buy directly from Santi. So they've got to come through a dealer to some sort of degree. And as a dealer, we've still got some sort of responsibility. So like you guys, if you guys sent me your measurement forms, I'd still give them a check over and see if there's anything out of the blue that I'm like, is that wrong or not? But typically we always say is if you've measured yourselves, the liability is on you. And then as the dealer, we determine where the problem is, if it was in the problem with the measuring or if it has been cut, and then we go down that street from which one we need to do it for.
So you're taking quite a lot of sizes, which of course is going to give you a very accurate shape. But when you talk about the stock sizes, how many people will fit a stock size? How many people need to go for the custom option or even the middle option?
So let's say kind of about 5 people, I'd probably say in terms of a straight stock suit, 1 or 2 people would be fitted in that suit. Then for the other 3, we'd probably have to say change some sort of measurement. So in terms of the 5 people, it's only getting 2 people that would actually probably fit into a stock suit. And again, that could change, but that's just a rough number.
And that's out of 10, is that?
And that's out of 5, let's say.
Out of 5, okay.
So two out of the 5 would be able to fit straight into a regular suit, and the rest of them would need some sort of measurement changes, and then potentially the full made to measure as well.
And how many people would they'd need that made to measure versus the 4 changes allowed?
Let's base it on last year. I probably made 3 or 4 made to measure suits in the year out of the 35, 40 suits I sold all year.
Fine.
So it's very, very small, the amount of people that actually do need made to measure.
And based on taking our measurements,
yeah.
I guess you do that with everybody, and then you look at that compared to stock sizes.
Correct.
And you choose whether it's worth it or not.
Correct. So the process is like you guys have done. You've come here today. Typically, we talk about the full product range first, have a look, see what sort of suit you guys want, and then we jump straight into the measuring. Yeah. Now, every person gets measured like you guys have, top to toe, and then we'd use our size charts that we can base all the measurements off, and then again, it's down to us to work out what would be the best size.
Santi will make 4 changes up to 5 centimeters free of charge, and there is a paid option of making 2 more size adjustments up to 5 centimeters. Anything above the 6 changes or changes greater than 5 centimeters will have to be ordered as a made to measure suit.
And what they typically do with the made to fit suits is that the majority of the suit is a standard size. So they've already got pre-made cutouts where they can then just change the measurement very slightly to get the measurement we need for it.
When you're taking these measurements,
yeah.
How many times do you think people at home would get them right compared with you doing them?
You'd probably get, like say, 80 to 85% correct measurement from people doing them at home. There's quite a lot of tolerance in the suits anyway, so they will cover up a lot of measurement changes. But what we tend to see is some of the more critical measurements, like waist measurements or hip measurements, is where people tend to make the biggest mistake from. So like what a lot of people do is when we go to take a waist measurement, first thing everyone does is breathes in.
Yep.
To make himself a little bit smaller, which is not what we want. We want the widest part, so we need to get everyone to relax. And that's where we see the biggest measurement change in them critical ones, is that what a lot of people at home get wrong. And that's in terms of construction of the dry suit, is the hardest place for us to change as well. Because if we've got the waist, that's the middle area of the suit, it means we've got to change the size of the top to contour out more and potentially contour the bottom out more as well. So they're typically the most vital measurements that we've got. People usually get wrong are the bicep measurements and the forearm measurements, just because they're typically do them relaxing. Chest, waist and hips are the biggest ones we kind of come across where we get big problems. Not typically across the dry suit range, more in the undersuit range, because they're a much more closer fitting garment. So then they'll really show that if there's a measurement problem, that you'll lose movement in there. With a suit, because we've got quite a lot of tolerance in there to add in for undersuits and added undersuits, then you tend to see measurement changes get covered up a lot more from them. So whereabouts do you normally wear your wrist seal, Steve?
Again, I had the same sort of issue as Vas, really. I mean, you know, when I grip, I've always generally got the water in.
Yeah.
The only one time I never got leaky seals was Griffin dry suits many years back.
Okay.
I had a barefoot suit. I used to do a lot of barefoot water skiing.
Okay, yeah.
And it has double wrist seals.
Yeah.
So it had a seal here, it built inside to there, and another seal to there.
Okay.
Now, with the water pressure, same for the feet, the water would always break the outer seal, but it would never be
break the
enough
inner one
to break the inner one. That's the only way to stay dry.
Yeah, that's it. So what I'd probably say from just looking at your hand here, if you can see when you contract, you get quite a lot of your dip here.
Yeah.
So personally, I'd tell you to move your wrist seal further forward.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can get that area there, because if you see when you tense your hand here, these parts don't actually move all that much, and there's not much of a dip between them.
And it's still changing here, isn't
that's it. And there, even if you went backwards on yourself, whereas Vaz's didn't move so much as he tightened in on his hand there.
Yeah.
But here it moved quite a lot on yourself, Vaz. But with Steve, his dips in quite a bit, so going further back would cause you more problems. So try and go a little bit further forward.
So again, put it where you put it. It's quite far forward.
Quite far forward.
Okay.
And you take just one arm?
So just one arm, typically. Normally the dominant arm is normally the longest. Some people who know that their other arm is longer will say, my other arm's longer, so we can measure that. But typically with your arm, it's only a 1 to 2 centimetre difference.
Fine.
And with the allowance of the suit, that 1 to 2 centimetres across that length, you don't notice all that much anyway.
Just to go back to the armpit, I mean, you usually have quite like a cavernous area, right? And so you can go all the way in, a little bit out. I mean, how are you really knowing?
That is, again, one of them, bit of a mystery measurement, unfortunately. So it's kind of one of them. But the nice thing about the Santi suits is that they're actually cut in a Y. So the idea behind the armpits is that it actually does go right into the armpit.
Fine.
With suits that are cut into a T, they don't actually go into a T. They end up cut in the corner, which one limits movements in the arm, and it means then the suit doesn't get into the correct position.
Okay. Can I ask you again about the bone? I mean, if I feel the back here, I mean, I can feel 2, maybe even 3 bones that stick out. How are you knowing which of those to pick?
I always personally, and especially from Santi, go for the top one. So this first one here that comes in, because then what happens is even if we go from that top one, we'll always gain a little bit in there. If I went down to that one, again, look, as you can see, Steve, I can lose that 1 centimetre just going from going to there to there quite easily. So I always go a little bit higher, because longer in a dry suit will always be a little bit better. More flexibility and more movement is always the key. So 69 there.
And again, you shouldn't be flexing the muscle.
Shouldn't be flexing. When we're using the thighs and stuff like that, when you're typically stood, that's enough flex for us to do the measurement for you. So I'm going to do a 69 and then I'm going to do the widest point. And this is a bit of, like you said, there's a little bit of a funny measurement, as if this measurement, what I've just taken to the size chart, is probably not the best location for us to actually measure you. So that's why I'm giving Santi the option that we've got this is the widest point of his thigh as well. And they'll say, right, that's definitely the widest point, so we need to tailor it to that suit, to that size. If we went from the smaller size, then you could have the potential of coming.
Knee as well and try and
we don't take the knee, we just go from the widest part. And what they'll do is they'll take that widest part measurement, and we also do a calf widest part, and then they'll taper the suit in to that widest. You will get a natural. That's it. So what you'll always find, you might be a 9 in the rock boots, but then the allowance is still enough for you to get in and have a well-tight fitted boot. What we also do see from sometimes is people go up 2 sizes in rock boots as well. So like yourself, you're actually smaller. Some people will go on their normal size and then 2 sizes up as well, depending on what underlays they're wearing under the sock. So it all depends on what environment you're going to go for. Obviously, with the neoprene socks, there is a little bit of give in them anyway. So you can, if you want to squeeze another pair of socks in there as well. They'll just be a little bit tighter on your foot.
And when you take these, I mean, do you normally do the first take yourself, or do you normally do it once or twice for a measurement?
So typically we always do one take,
Yeah.
and then what we normally do is quite a lot of the divers that we have come in are most likely looking for a regular fitting suit, so not to go for made to measure. Now with Santi, there's actually 3 options of sizing. So there's a regular sizing to go straight to a stock size suit. We've also got a made to fit option. And then we've then got the made to measure option, which is a fully custom suit. Now, what we actually find is that 90% of the divers don't need a made to measure suit. Most of them fit into a stock size suit, but they just need some small measurements changing, typically like biceps or forearm or arm length or leg length, which are very, very easy measurements for us to change because they're just changing the length. We're cutting the material already at that length, so we can just add another couple of centimetres in to add into that. So we actually find 90% of the people now, since we've added this option in, go for a made to fit instead of a made to measure, which cuts out a quite considerable amount of cost straight away.
Yes.
The made to measure fees are around £350 now. So it cuts out a huge amount of cost straight out of the suit for you straight away. And every suit is made to order anyway.
Okay.
So for us to change that small detail is not much for Santi. So
Fine.
we offer it and we can do it. Obviously, a made to measure suit is always going to be a better fitting suit because it is made to you. But if you don't want to do the added cost, and for pretty much a well fitted suit, made to fit makes it a good option.
We told you the check was in the post, right?
Sorry?
We told you the check
Yeah, that was the one. That's the one.
When you took all the measurements, Will, you used, I guess you call it a soft tape or a tailor's tape.
Yep.
What's the purpose of using that versus like a traditional tape that I've got in my DIY kit?
Yep, so the main reason and the primary reason we use the tailor's tape is because of the flexibility of it. So we can actually curve around the diver's body and go around all the parts of the body. Typically, tailor's tapes are normally shorter than the traditional kind of builder's tape.
Yep.
So in terms of measuring height and things like that, the builder's tape would be a lot more easier for us.
Sure.
But the majority of the measurements we need to do are on curvatures. So we need to get the tape measure into that curve, so the flexibility gives us that.
Okay, I mean, can you show me, for example, taking, let's say, a bicep or a thigh using this?
Yeah.
So we can just see how much different it would be versus, say, a tailor's
Yeah,
tape.
that's cool. So obviously with it being quite stiff anyway, we potentially could lose some measurements in that bend.
Yeah.
But let's actually have a look. So if we do a bicep measurement for me, Baz.
Yeah, sure.
So if we go round, so if I try and bend that round.
Yeah.
In terms of it actually going into the bicep here, it's not too much of a problem.
Okay.
So if you can see there, Steve, it's actually lifting off the skin here quite a little bit, and especially here, look where Vaz's bicep comes in, so there is quite a gap. So we typically get a bigger measurement with this,
Right. Okay.
which in some instances isn't a problem to have a slightly bigger measurement, but we want the real life measurement if we can.
And in terms of what people wear, you always have them wear thin.
Always have them wear thin base layer, and Santi will always add in enough tolerance for depending on the base layer. So we've got 2 types of cut with a Santi suit. We've got the slim cut and we've got the regular cut.
Okay.
Slim foot cut is what we kind of call like the cave cut. So when you know you're only going to be wearing thin undergarments and you want a really nice, well-fitting suit for cave. The regular cut is like it is the regular, so it will allow for Santi's biggest undersuit, which is the BZ400. So they'll always add enough tolerance into the suit for you guys to wear the thickest undersuit, and you've still got the full range of movement that you'd want out of the suit.
Okay.
So that's the difference between the two. Obviously, if you know full well that you're only going to be diving in warmer undergarments, then why not go for a slimmer cut? But like yourself, Vaz, if you're moving from Malta to here to Mexico, you want the option of being able to get all them undergarments underneath the suit. So your suit in the warmer climates will be a little bit bigger on you.
Fine.
So when you get your suits, it's always try your suits on with your thickest underlayer and make sure you've still got your full range of movement.
Okay.
Because more excess material in the warmer climates is not too much of a problem for it. It's just a bit more folding over and bits and bobs. But it's much better for you to have a bigger suit for you to do your your colder stuff as well.
Okay. And with a measurement that's quite long like this, and
Yep.
you've got all these areas for adding and removing, if you take that measurement 2 or 3 times and you end up with 3 different measures, I mean, how do you know you're not going...
Again, it's one of them, and if I measured you or if Steve measured you now, there would be a 1 or 2 centimetre increment in between. And that is a problem we do come across sometimes. And again, it's all about the position of the tape measure. If everybody's measuring on the same way, even then, if I measured it or Adam measured you now, there'd always be a 1-2 centimetre difference. And across that long length, 1 centimetre is not massive, but it's when, let's say, we measured that measurement and went straight across where we'd lose a little bit, and then we measured it another centimetre wrong, we could easily lose 5 centimetres, 6 centimetres, which is a lot in an arm length eventually. 17.5.
How important are these halves and these ones?
Honestly, not massively. With what Santi will typically always do with the 0.5s, they'll either round them up or round them down, depending what area they're in. Obviously, something like chest or waist, they'll always just round up, because 0.5 of a centimetre across that total diameter is actually a very small amount of change anyway. So they'll always just typically round them sort of areas up. Things like wrist seals and neck seals, we always round down, because as tight, and the wrist seal and neck seal is a lot better for the diver.
Some of these you can get yourself, but for a lot of them it seems like you need to have...
It's always better for somebody else to measure you, and preferably someone who kind of knows what measuring will change on your body, depending where you want to go with it.
And it seems that it's not like a tailor where you would get a suit measured. It's different actual things.
Different actual things for different types of measurements as well. And it is kind of the little tips and tricks do make a big difference to the size of your suit. So just like we said earlier, when reaching back for the valves, it will make a massive amount of difference, a massive amount of movement in that area. And that's where we see it, not typically with a dry suit, but the undergarments on people. If that measurement isn't correct, because the undergarments are a lot more closer fit, that's then where we actually lose the mobility, not necessarily always in the dry suit. So we always try and size for the worst case, because then we know everything else is then going to be better.
Okay.
And that's it. Cool. So that's we're done.
Well, thank you very much.
No worries.
That completes our second of 3 videos. If you missed video 1, we go through step by step how to take all the suit measurements, and in video 3 we discuss all suit options and extras. Don't miss that one.